Sieht so aus, als hätte Dillon Gabriel auf Kevin Stefanski und Myles Garrett nach ihren Kommentaren zu seiner schwachen Leistung reagiert.
Dillon Gabriel just delivered the definitive proof that sometimes winning the starting job doesn't mean you actually earned it. It just means the football gods were in the mood for some pure, unadulterated entertainment. Because his public reaction to supposedly beating out Shedeur Sanders for the starting role, let's just say it was less franchise quarterback confidence and more awkward high school group project energy. The kind where you know you got an A, but you also know you didn't do any of the work. Have you ever watched someone celebrate a huge win as if they're not entirely sure they actually passed the test? Yeah, that was Dillon Gabriel. And trust me, you are going to want to stick around to see how this entire situation spirals out of control. A spiral that will likely be much faster and more spectacular than any of his deep throws.
Er ist natürlich nicht glücklich darüber, dass wir gewonnen oder verloren haben, aber ja, körperlich, ja, auf jeden Fall. Ja.
Wie hart war es da draußen mit den Jungs, die gerade 16 Hits und 6-6 einstecken mussten? Wie physisch aggressiv waren sie?
Ja, sie sind ein richtig gutes Team. Ich denke, was das Sacken angeht, kann ich ein paar Dinge tun, um den Sack so schnell wie möglich rauszuholen, damit wir beim ersten und zweiten Versuch nicht im Minus sind. Also, Dinge, aus denen wir lernen müssen.
Dillon Gabriel is currently living every backup quarterback's wildest dream, but it's the kind of dream where you wake up and you slowly realize you only got the big promotion because the boss liked your previous work experience, not necessarily your actual on-the-job skills. The man's entire sudden rise to the top of the depth chart right now feels a lot like a resume promotion that has gone way too far. Kevin Stefanski looked at him and said, "He's been around, he's steady, he won't break the system." And the translation of that statement is simple. He is the human version of white bread, safe, plain, and apparently just reliable enough to be sacrificially toasted on Sundays.
Zum Glück habt ihr Fans der Cleveland Browns das Spiel heute nicht gewonnen. Heute war vielleicht eines der schlimmsten Spiele, die ich seit langem verloren habe. Jeder in seiner Mama ist extrem frustriert von Kevin Stefanski und der Offensive. Die Offensive kommt nicht in Gang. Und ich meine, zu diesem Zeitpunkt hat Dillon Gabriel bewiesen, dass er in der National Football League kein Starter sein muss. Er hat eine Menge Würfe verfehlt.
But let's be absolutely and completely real for a second, because everyone in that locker room knows exactly what is coming. Shedeur Sanders is just sitting right there, cooler than a blizzard in January, calmer than a Sunday morning church choir, and he is just patiently waiting for his one single moment to turn this entire fragile quarterback situation into his own personal highlight reel. The raw, almost palpable energy that is now surrounding him is completely and totally electric. The very same kind of energy that makes all of the opposing defensive coordinators start to sweat long before the kickoff has even happened. And you can almost feel the unease that is now settling in Dillon Gabriel's own personal pocket every single time that Shedeur now just walks by, as if the air in that entire building has now just suddenly gotten heavier with the weight of all of his untapped potential.
Wir werden über die Cleveland Browns sprechen. Es gibt ein paar Dinge, die die Browns betreffen. Anhaltende Auseinandersetzungen nun, Kevin Stefanski ist der Trainer der Cleveland Browns. Zumindest glaube ich, dass er immer noch der Trainer der Cleveland Browns ist. Lass mich das sicher gehen. Kevin. Ja, als ich vor etwa 2 Stunden alles für dieses Video zusammengestellt habe, war er noch angestellt? Er ist immer noch angestellt. Es tut mir leid, Browns-Fans. Das ist bis zur Sekunde. Für euch, das ist wieder, es tut mir leid.
And see, the funny thing about experience is that it always sounds really great in theory, right up until the moment that it starts to look incredibly and hopelessly outdated. It is the professional sports equivalent of bragging about owning a flip phone, simply because it never crashes. And yeah, sure, it works, but absolutely no one is impressed by it anymore. And Kevin Stefanski might be completely and totally buying into all of Dillon Gabriel's years under center, but those years do not always equal greatness. No, sometimes they just mean that you have had more time to make the exact same and the very predictable mistakes.
Ist einfach nur traurig, denn vor der Saison wussten viele, dass die Saison nicht gut werden würde, aber niemand hatte damit gerechnet, dass sie so schlecht werden würde. Weißt du, nicht einmal ich. Wenn jemand sauer sein sollte, dann ich bin der Einzige, der 89 vorhergesagt hat. Wenn also jemand sauer sein sollte, dann ich. Aber wenn man sich das Spiel dieser Mannschaft ansieht, dann gibt es keine Aufregung. Das einzige Aufregende an dieser Mannschaft ist die Verteidigung. Und wenn eine Mannschaft 20 Punkte oder mehr erzielt oder sogar 14 Punkte führt, ist das irgendwie das Ende. Dann ist das Spiel vorbei.
And lately, it feels a lot like that is Dillon Gabriel's own personal superpower, just doing the bare and the absolute minimum, and doing it so convincingly that it actually starts to look strategic. And meanwhile, Shedeur is just sitting there, in the shadows, like a grandmaster who is just watching a game of checkers. And every single one of his reps in practice, every single one of his warm-up throws, and every single one of the sideline camera pans, it is all just a part of the countdown. And he does not even need to say a single word either, because the confidence is just written all over him. And it is the kind of a quiet and a very powerful assurance that does not need to shout. No, it just waits for the scoreboard to do all of the talking for him. And let's be honest here, the fans all know it too, because you can hear it in the crowd every single time that Dillon Gabriel throws a safe and a very uninspiring 5-yard pass on a 3rd and 8. And there is just a collective and a very audible sigh. The kind of a sigh that just says, yup, that is what Nicksperience looks like. And yeah, sure, it is the exact same kind of right thing that keeps you from updating your own computer for 5 years, right up until the moment that it just crashes, right in the middle of your big presentation. He is just clinging to the idea that a veteran quarterback somehow just equals security, even when that security just looks like a series of offensive drives that all just stall out faster than a broken down and a very rusty minivan. Because Dillon Gabriel's own personal playstyle is just so predictable, it is just so steady, and it is just so uninspired. And he is the kind of a guy who will just take the scenic route, even when there is a highway that is right next to him. No risks, no fireworks, just vibes.
Euch doch gesagt, dass es erst über Stefanskis Leiche gehen muss, bevor ihr Shedeur freiwillig einsetzt.
Er wird nicht gehen.
Leute, glaubt ihr, dass ein Cheftrainer, der das ganze Jahr über niemanden wahrgenommen hat, jemand, der nicht einmal den Namen von jemandem nennen wollte, jemand, der nicht einmal Details über seine Fortschritte als Spieler oder als Rookie in der NFL nennen kann, freiwillig seinen Mann einsetzen wird?
Nein, nein, nein.
Leute, Dan Lanning und Kevin Stefanski sind so. Kevin Stefanski und Dillon Gabriel sind so.
Das ist sein Typ.
Kevin
And
Stefanski,
for a coach who is
Dillon Gabriel.
completely and totally terrified of chaos, that is very comforting. But the sport of football does not reward comfort. No, it rewards creativity, it rewards swagger, and it rewards just enough of a recklessness to be able to make some magic. And that is exactly what Shedeur brings to the table. Because Shedeur is not just a player, no, he is a show. And he has got that magnetic and that very undeniable energy that makes you stop right in the middle of your snack during a game and just go, wait, did he just do that? And every single other move that he makes just feels as if it belongs on a highlight reel that has been narrated by destiny itself. And when he is in control of the game, then the game just bends differently. The line just blocks better, the receivers just run some crisper routes, and even the fans all just start to believe in miracles once again. And that is not just luck either. No, that is presence. And presence is something that you simply cannot teach, no matter how many years of experience you have collected. And Dillon Gabriel has got the look of a man who has studied every single one of his playbooks, but who still somehow just misses the moment. And it is like watching someone who has rehearsed all of the perfect dance steps, but who has done it all without ever having felt the rhythm. And the coaches always have that look right before they are forced to make the inevitable switch, that perfect and that almost palpable mix of both denial and of dread. And he just keeps on praising Dillon Gabriel's leadership, as if that is somehow going to distract anyone from the fact that the team's offense now just looks as if it is running on some training wheels. But leadership without any results is just poetry and some cleats, and sooner or later you are going to need some touchdowns, not some metaphors.
Jemand im Trainerstab muss sich mit diesem gestrigen Beispiel von Dillon Gabriel befassen. Patrick Queen spielt weiter mit Dillon Gabriel. Und als Patrick auf dem Vormarsch ist, macht Dillon Gabriel das. Schon irgendwie seltsam, aber egal. Das ist seine Passtabelle von gestern. Alle 52 Pässe. Was fällt euch hier auf? Viele davon waren hinter der Scrimmage-Linie oder knapp davor. 2 Pässe, die ich gesehen habe, sind im Grunde genommen fallen gelassen worden. Viele davon waren hinter den Receivern, aber genau das meinen wir hier. Das meinen wir, wenn wir sagen, dass wir genau wissen, was uns erwartet.
And there is a very good reason that the universe just loves a good story of poetic justice, and it is in the process of setting the stage for one perfectly here. Because the very same experience that Kevin Stefanski is now leaning on is the very same thing that is going to crumble under the pressure. And when it does, then Shedeur's own personal name will just light up that entire roster like a neon sign that is in the dark. Because when opportunity finally does meet preparation, then the fireworks will just follow. And that is Shedeur's own personal specialty. So just imagine the day that it finally does happen. Dillon Gabriel throws one too many of his checkdowns, and the crowd just starts to rumble. The offense just looks completely and totally lifeless. And then Kevin Stefanski finally just glances down the sideline. And there is Shedeur, his helmet is on, his eyes are locked, and he is just waiting. And you can bet that when Shedeur finally does step onto that field, that it will not just be about his proving that he belongs there. No, it will be about his proving that the whole experience over talent myth is now officially and completely outdated, because the sport of football is not a seniority contest. No, it is a performance business. And for Shedeur, the patience is now thinning and the fans are now catching on. Because experience might just keep you in the job for now, but excitement is what keeps the lights on. And right now, Shedeur is pure and he is unadulterated. Electricity. And Dillon Gabriel's own personal game management is now starting to look less and less like a form of wisdom and more like a form of hesitation.
Aber das haben wir heute über Dillon Gabriel gelernt. Er führt Kevin Stefanskis Angriff aufs Genaueste. Und genau, das will Stefanski. Der Unterschied zwischen Gabriel und Shedeur. Nun, das ist es.
Because the man just plays as if he is scared to make ESPN's not top 10. And that is not the mentality of a leader. No, that is the mindset of someone who is just trying to keep a job that he knows that he is just borrowing. And meanwhile, Shedeur just walks around as if the future is already his. Because it is. And let's just face it, Kevin Stefanski's own personal favoritism now feels less and less like a form of strategy and more like a form of comfort food. Because he is now just going for what he knows, even if what he knows is bland. And it is the coaching equivalent of just reheating some leftovers instead of just trying a new recipe. And it might just work for a while, right up until the moment that someone at the table tastes something better. And when that does happen, then there is no going back from that. And the locker room feels it too, because the players can all sense when the balance is shifting. And they all know when one guy is the spark and when the other one is just a flicker. And so it is only a matter of time before all of the whispers all turn into a form of momentum. And before that momentum then turns into a quarterback change that will feel as natural as breathing. And when that moment finally does hit, then the entire narrative will just flip, and it will flip faster than a bad pancake, and it will happen right after the scoreboard has forced his hand. But that is the sport of football for you, because nobody wants to be wrong, right up until the moment that the right answer wins them a game. And when Shedeur finally does get that chance, then he is not just going to win some games, no, he is going to rewrite them. Because the tempo, the energy, the creativity, everything that Dillon Gabriel has been so cautiously tiptoeing around, Shedeur is going to bulldoze right through, and he is going to do it all with style.
Stefanski, während dieses Interviews nach dem Spiel. Ich bin ehrlich zu euch. Er legt Wert darauf, Shedeur nicht spielen zu lassen. Er hat die ganzen Fragen satt. Er hat die Schnauze voll von Leuten wie mir und allen anderen, die in ihren Kommentaren sagen, dass Shedeur spielen muss. Er wird ihn absichtlich nicht einsetzen. Er provoziert jeden in den Medien, der Fan ist und die gleichen Fragen stellt wie ich. Wann werden wir Shedeur sehen? Und wenn es nach ihm geht und Gabriel gesund ist, werden wir ihn in dieser Saison wahrscheinlich nie wiedersehen. Aber so schlecht diese Organisation auch ist, weiß ich nicht einmal, ob ich ihn überhaupt noch spielen lassen will.
Because for all of the talk about earning it, the truth of the matter is that some people are just built differently. Dillon Gabriel fits into a system, and Shedeur creates one. And that is the one single and very real difference between experience and excellence. Because you can train a player to memorize all of your plays, but you simply cannot train them to own the moment. And that is instinct, that is charisma, and that is Shedeur Sanders. So while Kevin Stefanski is still busy, just clutching his comfort blanket of veteran reliability, the rest of the entire league is just watching and waiting, because they have all seen this story before. There is the cautious coach, there is the overlooked star, and there is the inevitable shift. And when it does happen, then it will feel less like a surprise and more like destiny is finally catching up, because when the dust finally does settle, no one will even remember Dillon Gabriel's experience. No, they will just remember Shedeur's rise. They will remember the throws that had all looked so impossible. They will remember the drives that had all felt so electric, and they will remember the moment that he had turned a stale and a very predictable offense into a statement. And that is what sticks, because eventually every single one of these veterans just becomes a cautionary tale. They become a name that you just mention in all of your remember when conversations, right before someone says, yeah, but then Shedeur took over. And that is how quickly the sport of football can change its heroes. One week you are the coach's favorite, and the next you are just holding a clipboard and you are just wondering how the rookie had made it all look so easy.
Das ist die NFL. Das heißt, wir müssen besser werden. Und das ist das, was ich muss besser werden für dieses Footballteam. Unsere Trainer müssen besser werden für dieses Footballteam. Unsere Spieler müssen besser werden für dieses Football. Unterm Strich gibt es Dinge, die einen vom Sieg abhalten. Und die muss man ausschalten, um sich eine Chance zu geben. K ist ein C. Wir müssen sie sauber halten. Wenn das Spiel so wird, wie es gelaufen ist, ein Spiel mit 2 Punkten Rückstand, muss man sich zurückziehen. Und gegen das ist ein Gegner, gegen den man sich nur schwer zurückziehen kann. Aber er hat weitergekämpft. Es lag nicht an mangelnder Anstrengung von seiner Seite oder von jemand anderem. Er hat ein paar Spielzüge gemacht.
And the truth of the matter is, Dillon Gabriel's biggest problem is not that he is bad. No, it is that he is ordinary. And ordinary simply does not survive for very long, when the extraordinary is standing right behind it. And Shedeur is not the type of a player who will just wait politely forever, because he is just too competitive. He is just too naturally gifted, and he is just way too confident to just sit there in the background while the team's offense just keeps on grinding its gears. And every single other snap that Dillon Gabriel now takes just feels like a borrowed moment, and everyone can now just feel that clock just ticking, and you can practically see the storyline that is now just forming itself. There will be one injury, there will be one bad interception, and there will be one game where the offense just looks flat, and then boom, Shedeur will just step in. And when he does, then it is not going to be a 1-week experiment. No, it is going to be a full-blown shift in the team's identity. Because once Shedeur starts rolling, then you do not just pull him back out. No, Shedeur will just trot out there. He will just adjust his helmet, and then within just a few minutes, everything will just feel different. And the receivers will suddenly just look sharper. The line will suddenly just look stronger. And the fans will all be on their feet long before the drive has even ended. And Shedeur brings that naturally, because he does not just want to win some games. No, he wants to redefine them. And for a team that has been stuck in neutral for so long, that is the ignition that they have all been begging for.
Wir konzentrieren uns sehr stark auf diese vermeidbaren Strafen, also die Strafen vor dem Snap. Ganz klar hatten wir im Spiel eine illegale Formation. In diesem Bereich müssen wir besser werden. Und da muss man mit sauberer Technik spielen. Das wird auch immer ein Teil davon sein. Zu verstehen, dass die Platzierung deiner Hände, du weißt schon, wie du deine Arbeit machst, sehr wichtig ist.
And on the other hand, Dillon Gabriel is the product of a system that values caution over creativity, and he is the safe hands quarterback. He is steady, he is respectable, and he is unthreatening, and he is the guy who makes the coaches all sleep better at night, but who makes the fans all yawn during the game. And that is fine for a while, but when the excitement just walks in and it is wearing the number of Shedeur Sanders, then even safety just starts to look boring. And there is also the locker room factor, and Shedeur gives them that too, because he just plays as if he believes in every single other person on that field, and that kind of a belief is contagious. And before long, the entire team just starts to elevate their own personal game just to match his, and they can all tell when a coach is just managing the outcomes instead of just chasing the greatness. And right now, it just feels as if he is in the process of protecting the team from the very same thing that could save it. But the sport of football, just like life, has got a funny way of forcing a change when the people just resist it for too long. Because the universe does not just wait for permission. No, it just hands the ball to whoever is ready. And when that handoff does happen, then Shedeur is going to seize it as if he has been rehearsing this very moment for his whole life. Because he has, and he has been preparing for it. He has been studying for it. He has been watching for it, and he has been waiting for it. And not out of a sense of frustration either, but out of a sense of confidence.
Also was bringt euch dazu zu glauben, dass er Shedeur Sanders freiwillig einsetzt, nur um dabei zu sein? Weil er weiß, dass nicht alles nach Plan läuft. Ich sage euch, es geht nur über seine Leiche. Er wird das nicht freiwillig tun. Er ist nicht bereit, Shedeur Sanders einzusetzen. Das wird nicht passieren, Leute. Wir könnten genauso gut darüber reden, Leute. Das wird nicht passieren. Egal, was wir sagen, egal, was ich sage, Bruder. Ich wusste es, Leute. Stefanski wird gefeuert werden, Leute. Ich kann mir einfach nicht vorstellen, dass Stefanski Shedeur einsetzt. Das würde mich überraschen. Das wäre es wirklich. Denn du weißt ja, wie Stefanski Shedeur das ganze Jahr über behandelt hat, Bruder.
And that is the one single quality that profoundly separates him. He does not need Kevin Stefanski's approval to know that he is the future. He already embodies that reality in his very presence. The fans can see it, the players can feel it, and soon enough, even the coaching staff will have no choice but to finally and completely concede to it. When that inevitable switch finally happens, it will not be a gradual, gentle transition. It will be an absolute detonation. Shedeur will walk onto that field. He will completely change the temperature of the entire room, and he will powerfully remind everyone why raw, unshakable belief matters so much more than just accumulated experience. The passes will suddenly start connecting with a new precision. The entire offense will finally stop tiptoeing and will start to play with a swagger that has been missing for years. And suddenly, the Cleveland Browns will look like a team that actually enjoys playing the game of football again. And maybe, just maybe, Kevin Stefanski will one day look back and realize that experience is not the same thing as evolution. That sometimes the best way to protect your job is not by desperately clinging to what you already know. It is by courageously trusting in what is next. And what's next has already arrived. Its name is Shedeur Sanders.